Hello, we are back for round two. And do I have some news for you? I think we need to start with the important point that when I say Scientology visa fraud, there is a question mark at the end. I am not accusing Scientology of committing fraud. However, I have uncovered some concerning documents and evidence that present a case where it's possible that that is what's going on. So this is a question. I'm throwing it out to you guys. What do you think? I'm going to show you the evidence and we're going to have a discussion and see what you think. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but it certainly looks like something fishy is going on. Now, earlier, I brought to you the news that a Freedom of Information Act request that I submitted to East Grinstead Town Council was rejected because apparently I'm a bully and vexatious, which I strongly deny, but it's another label to add into the bingo of labels that I'm trying to complete here, apparently, in speaking out against Scientology. However, one organization that hasn't rejected a Freedom of Information Act request I submitted last month is the Home Office. Now, the Home Office is responsible for visas, immigration, all that sort of thing. And it turns out in 2023, January last year, when Scientology buildings were designated places of public worship after a 10-year legal battle, Scientology also then gained the ability to sponsor work visas for foreign citizens coming to work for Scientology in the UK, which in itself is questionable and slightly concerning. But the numbers paint a very interesting picture and certainly raises a few eyebrows. So let's just say hello to some of the guys here in the chat. PTS for life, Jeff. How dare you suggest Scientology would be involved in any sort of fraud? I know, outrageous. Who would have thunk it? And Jeff, welcome to my chat. Thank you for popping in. I'm excited to see what you're working on at the moment that we talked about earlier. I cannot wait to see it. Love it. Hello, how are you doing? 2 lives in one day. I know. What am I even thinking? I wasn't even going to do a single live this morning, but here we are. Fangirl Jen, at this point, saying Scientology isn't involved in fraud of some kind would be a news alert. Absolutely. Guys, towards the end of this, I'm also... Oh, hi, Mark Dorset SP as well. Hi, mate. How are you doing? But towards the end of this, I'm also going to be taking your questions. We're going to have a little bit of a longer discussion about the events that unfolded earlier today. Now that I've calmed down a bit, I'm not quite as angry, but I'm still upset. But we'll get on to that later. What I'm going to show you here is the response that I got from the Home Office when I basically I sent the Home Office a Freedom of Information Act request saying, you know, how many visas has Scientology sponsored since they got the right to do that in January of last year? Now, this is the document that they provided. It's important to note, this isn't the number of visas that were issued, it's the number that Scientology are down as a sponsor for. So it is possible some of these visas weren't approved in the end. They were sponsored and for whatever reason it didn't happen. The Home Office were unable to give me the number of how many visas were actually granted because their systems don't track the number of visas granted versus the sponsor attached to them in an easy way for them to give me that information. So it is possible that all of these visas resulted in sponsorships. It resulted in no visas being issued. However, my understanding is that most of these, if not all of them, were granted. So let me show you this document if I can find the right tab to share. Here we go. So this is the document that they sent to me. I will be making this available on Scientology Business probably tomorrow at this point. So keep your eyes on scientologybusiness.com if you want to have sort of peruse at your leisure and look at all of this information. But here, it's a very long document for a very small piece of information. But Church of Scientology Religious Education College Incorporated, they are my former employers. That is the Australian registered charity that operates exclusively and solely in the United Kingdom, that Scientology operates, sort of funnels all of its UK operations through. That's the organization that can grant sponsorships. They've used 21 sponsorships. So Cosrecki, Scientology in the UK have sponsored 21 people to come and work for them in the United Kingdom. Now, this is slightly concerning because the sponsorship of visas is quite heavily regulated in the United Kingdom, and there are some really specific rules as to the minimum wage, what you get paid, and all of that sort of thing. Now, I suspect Scientology will be claiming all of these workers are religious volunteers rather than full-time paid employees. When I signed my staff contract, it was very clear I was a religious volunteer. However, it brings into question whether they have the right to actually take on religious volunteers because they're not a registered charity here in the UK. They operate through an Australian charity because they couldn't get tax exemption here. Their buildings are recognized as places of public worship, but they themselves are not recognized as a religious charity for the public benefit. Now, first of all, let's just look at the requirements of a visa. This is the gov.uk website, which is the UK government site. The skilled worker visa is the type of visa Scientology can issue. And it says here, these are the eligibility requirements. And here, the minimum salary for the type of work you'll be doing is whichever is the highest out of the following three options: £26,200 a year, £10.75 per hour, or the going rate for the type of work that you'll be doing. Now, I suspect they're going to make the claim that the going rate for religious volunteers is zero. However, there are also really strict rules as to what counts as an employee in the United Kingdom. So essentially, if they are paid employees or if they've got this skilled worker visa, they should be getting paid £26,200 a year or £10.75 an hour, which is actually what would end up being more, considering Sea Org staff are expected to work 12, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week with no time off. But in these calculations that I've done, I've tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and try and see, okay, let's figure this out. If they have a full-time 5-day-a-week job, and let's say they get Saturdays and Sundays off, I've worked out, done a little bit of maths. In Cosreki, Scientology's UK accounts, the most recent ones that were filed, they claimed that they've spent £1.4 million on staff allowances, which is wages. Now, Cosreki is the entire UK Scientology operation. The individual orgs are not run as separate businesses or organizations. It's all funneled through this one organization. So the total number of money spent on wages for the whole of the UK is £1.471 million. So £1,471,208. Now, if we give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're not working at 10.75, they're getting £26,200, which we just saw would probably be the highest rate if we give them benefit of the doubt. That means for 21 employees or workers, they should be spending £550,200 on wages for those specific visa sponsored workers. So that means that's 40% of the total amount of money spent on staff allowances went to these 21 people who are there on a sponsored visa. Now, that means they've got £921,000 left. So I did a little bit of maths. If they were paying the minimum wage for full-time employees, which they should be doing, that means if the minimum wage in 2022, it's gone up now, but the minimum wage is £9.50 an hour. So they have to be paying at least that, which means the average full-time worker is getting £19,760 a year, which means if Scientology are paying all of their staff the minimum wage as they should be, that means they have 21 people on visas and 46 full-time employees in the entire United Kingdom. Now, this is slightly concerning because that means there's a total of 67 employees running the whole UK operation. And we know very well that there are more than that working for Scientology in the UK. They claim on their company filings that there are 700 workers in the UK working for Scientology. There are videos filmed at St. Hill where staff members are talking about knowing all 200 people that are working there. These numbers are going to be inflated, but they're not going to be inflated from 67 to 200, and that's just St Hill. So if you take into consideration London, Manchester, Birmingham, Sunderland only has like 3 staff members, but still, and St Hill is obviously the largest base, you know, there's no way they run the entire operation with 67 employees, which means they must not be paying their staff the minimum wage. Now, again, I'm not making any accusations. I might be completely wrong. They could be paying all of their staff minimum wage, but when I was on staff, that's certainly not what happened or how it worked. I never got even close to minimum wage because they used this excuse that I'm a religious volunteer and therefore not eligible for wages. However, this is where the problem starts to set in. Now, this document here is very boring. I spend a lot of my time reading government documents like this and trawling through them. It is very, very dull. So I'm just going to whisk through it and show you the important bits. So the House of Commons Library, this was a briefing paper from December 2015. It's still in effect today. The National Minimum Wage, Volunteers and Interns. This is an official government document clarifying what counts as a volunteer and when a volunteer is required to receive the national minimum wage. So if we just scroll down here, the existence, so as indicated by this definition, a person's employment status is governed largely by his contractual relations. The existence of a contractual relationship, whether written, oral, or implied through conduct, is an essential prerequisite for national minimum wage entitlement. Now, I can assure you, even though I was a religious volunteer, I had an employment contract. I signed a 2.5-year contract. Other people signed 5 years. And obviously, if you join the Sea Org, you sign a 1 billion year contract. You are signing a contract to agree to work for the church for a certain number of hours a week in a certain job role with the posts that you and responsibilities you have to hold and certain hours that you have to be there working. So there's definitely a contract. Even though the contract says you're a religious volunteer, there's a contractual agreement here in place. So that already ticks the box for national minimum wage entitlement. Staff who are not paid a salary have nevertheless probably agreed to perform certain services, for example, opening the mail, answering the phone, etc. The employer has probably offered something in return. The general working context and elements of the mutual obligation characteristic as particular employment may show an intention to create legal relations. So the whole thing of whether minimum wage is applicable is about whether there is a intention to enter an agreement by which you are required, obligated to do work. You know, if you volunteer for the local homeless shelter or food bank, you're not going to sign a contract that commits you to working full-time hours at that place 5, 6, 7 days a week for 2.5 years for no pay. You just volunteer. You might commit yourself to, I'll come and do this every week or whatever. Absolutely fantastic, but there's no contractual obligation. When you work for the Church of Scientology, you are signing a contract that you are obligated to fulfill the requirements of your post, your job title. You have to be there. It's, for all intents and purposes, an employment. If a volunteer is under an obligation to work, then he is in fact a worker and entitled to the national minimum wage. So here we have the evidence that even though Scientology claims its religious volunteers are just that and therefore don't need to be paid minimum wage, this is the evidence that that is false. In UK law, even if you're a volunteer, if you have to work because you're contracted to do it, you have a job title, responsibilities, you are entitled to be paid the national minimum wage, which in 2022, which was the last accounts that were filed that we're looking at, was £9.50. I believe now it's £10 or £11 an hour. So if you're working full time in a Scientology org, you should be getting paid £19,000 a year minimum. Now, the rest of this document is very, very lengthy and boring. It just goes through other sort of types of internships and all of that sort of stuff. I did read the entire thing. What an exciting day of my life that was. It's not, rest of it's not really particularly relevant. But again, I will be putting it up on Scientologybusiness.com tomorrow for you guys to read if you are so inclined. Although I must admit, Dianetics was a much more thrilling book to read and much more entertaining than this. But That's the evidence that if you're a volunteer, you have to be getting paid minimum wage. So, if Scientology have spent 1.4 million pounds on staff allowances in the UK in a year, and they're paying what they should do for the work visas, which is half a million pounds, that leaves only £921,000, which means they must have 46 employees being paid minimum wage. Or the alternative, which is what I think is perhaps more likely, considering my experience working in Scientology and knowing how these things work, and the claims they make in their own government filings that they have 700 workers and so on. The alternative is that they have more than 46 workers, but they're not being paid minimum wage, which is illegal. It's against the rules. Now, the reason this is going to be potential visa fraud is because these people coming to work on this religious worker, skilled worker visa, there are also really tight restrictions on the type of job you can do if you're given a religious worker visa. And one of those things is you have to be a minister of the religion. Or the religious services. So you can't be, for example, an ethics officer or, in accounts. You can't do money stuff. You can't be a receptionist. You have to be a chaplain, giving the Sunday service, delivering Sunday service, or they might have a case for saying if you're a professional auditor, you're administering the religious service. So, okay, they might have a case there. But the majority of staff at St. Hill are not, in fact, ministers of the religion. It's a huge beast of an organization. Everyone working in OSA, for example, would not be considered ministers of the religion. Now, I don't know how many of these 21 sponsored visas are based at St. Hill. I don't know what roles they are in, but I find it highly unlikely that all 21 of those sponsored visas, those people are working as auditors or as the chaplain, because there's only one chaplain in a Scientology organization, usually. I don't think I've ever heard of there being more than one chaplain. So it becomes potential visa fraud because not only are they working in a different capacity, potentially, to what they should in order to be compliant with the sponsored visa, not only that, they are also likely not being paid the £26,200 because if you work for Scientology, you're a religious volunteer. If you work in the Sea organization, for example, you get £50 a week as a stipend, which is meant to help, cover any costs that you incur. But ultimately, the Church of Scientology is meant to cover all your costs for you and give you accommodation and food and clothing and everything you possibly need. So you don't really need any money. Unfortunately, often we see the accommodation and the things that are given to SEAL members is quite subpar. The uniform is often dirty, damaged. If it goes missing, you have to buy your own stuff. They don't give you soap or toothpaste or anything like that. That comes out of your £50 a week. And if you're in trouble because you've done something wrong or your stats are down, your £50 a week is reduced. And sometimes you don't get anything at all. If you're a class 5 staff member working in a city level organization like I was, it's not a set £50 a week. You earn a percentage of what the org made the prior week. So if the org made loads of money, you get slightly more and vice versa. But it's not really a high percentage. Most of the time my official pay was, £20 for the whole week, 5 days. I was meant to be doing 9 till 6, I think the hours were, if I remember rightly. However, as a bookseller, I was often out late at night and on the weekends, so it was many more hours than a full-time job. Often I did get more than £20 because we sold loads of books and we did really well. And then there was a commission situation that was set up that we probably shouldn't have done as per Scientology policy. So I got paid more than the £20 or whatever a week of wages. But I still never earned more than, I think, £200 in a week, which is far, far below the national minimum wage. So potential fraud on two fronts. People coming to work for Scientology with Scientology sponsoring their visa and them not doing the work that is eligible to be done under that visa, potentially. And secondly, they're not being paid the £26,000 because you don't get paid to work for Scientology unless you're an independent contractor or you're brought in, as you're working as a, you're providing, if you're a film director, example, like Mitch Brisker, he wasn't employed as a Sea Org member. He was brought in as an expert, a professional, and paid a wage that way. But most people who are in the Sea Org or staff members don't get paid anything. Now, they have to pay that £26,200. Otherwise, they can get called up and their visa sponsorship rights can get taken away. And that will create a big flap for Scientology. So either they are officially on paper paying their staff this money and then likely taking it back in donations to the church. So that money isn't actually going to the worker, or they're simply not paying the worker at all, claiming they're religious workers and therefore exempt. However, let's remember, religious workers, if you're a volunteer, doesn't matter. If you're obligated to work by a contract, you're considered an employee or a worker that's entitled to national minimum wage, which also means they would be entitled to this £26,200 visa situation. So I've uncovered something here that's highly concerning. I think it's evidence of potential visa fraud. What do you guys think? Have I gone completely bonkers mad and made this all up, or miscalculated something? Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Is Scientology likely committing visa fraud? Because I personally think that they are. Now, before you jump on it, I do want to let you know that, yes, this has been reported to law enforcement. I don't just come on here and make videos about stuff and don't follow it through with action. I spend most of my time actually in conversations with different groups of people with real action happening behind the scenes that I can't necessarily talk about. But anything that I report on my channel that is suspected fraud or illegal activity, before I bring it to you guys' attention, I do report it so they are aware. Now, who knows whether they're investigating or not, and even if they were, I wouldn't be able to say. So we'll just have to sit and wait. But that's the thing, you know, I think it's highly worrying. So let's look at some of your questions. Thank you so much, Unstable Datum, for the super chat. $10 is very nice of you. Which reminds me, guys, give that like button a tickle. Click the subscribe button. A lot of people that are watching my videos have been telling me they've been miraculously unsubscribed for some reason. So just make sure that you've got the bell ticked and you're subscribed if you obviously choose to and want to. And if you want to support the channel, super chats are great, but the best way is through Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link in the description down below, because YouTube take 30% of all earnings from super chats, whereas Buy Me a Coffee takes a smaller percentage. So I get more of the money that you're donating for the channel. So please do consider that if you want to support financially. Unstable Datum, you keep putting so many W's on the board against this evil and corruption. The visa fraud is at the base of their evil because no one from English-speaking countries are falling for their BS anymore. I don't know what you mean by so many W's on their board, unless you're talking about the Scientology stuck down 7 kind of analogy, which a lot of people probably won't get. But yes, I'm definitely following it through. I'm definitely not David Miscavige's #1 friend right now, and they definitely are doing some dodgy and shady things, and this is just one of them. With regard to English-speaking countries falling for their BS, look, I joined Scientology myself of my own volition. I'd heard some of the stories about how Scientology fair games people and like harasses journalists and such. I didn't know anything about for example, The Hole, because that wasn't out yet. I joined before Debbie Cook's email even went out. So a lot of the abuses that were happening were not really public knowledge, or if they were, I didn't come across them because I was only a teenager. So I was very young and vulnerable, and I was manipulated in and convinced that all of that stuff is complete rubbish and they don't abuse anyone. It's wonderful. It's lovely. Scientology helps people, and so you should join. And that's what I did. So some people do fall for it. You've got to remember, it's a manipulative, coercive group. So even if you feel like you would never fall for a cult, it's still possible because of the bait and switch and the techniques that they use. But great question. Thank you so much. Vault Digger question: who has responsibility to check the visa rules are being followed? Is it just on trust? Now, this is one of the questions I asked the Home Office, and they basically got back to me and said that they do and can do random inspections. If they suspect there is some sort of dodgy visa fraud going on or something like that, they can just randomly show up. Occasionally, they just randomly do it without any cause or complaints or concerns. They just do random checks. Not very often, because this section of the government is massively underfunded, as is a lot of the government. But they do checks, and a lot lot of it, yes, is built on trust and the public informing them of when something dodgy is going on so they can investigate. But it is ultimately the Home Office that are responsible for it. Love it. Thank you very much for the question. How many COS members are there on their on how many COS members on there on expired visas? Couldn't family members get them sent back home on this cause? Now you've got to remember they've only had the right to sponsor visas for a year. I think it was January or February last year that they got the right to do it. So the visas that they issued wouldn't have expired yet. It's at the very beginning of that journey. I think the minimum, if I remember rightly, is 3 years or 5 years or something. And there's also indefinite visas as well. So none of them would have expired just yet. But yeah, getting family in, that's another way. But I'm not quite so clued up on the rules of getting citizenship and stuff in the UK through marriage. But I'm sure it's possible, but probably quite difficult. This is a good one here. Let's go back to what we were talking about earlier. The East Grinstead City Council are certainly being paid more than minimum wage by Scientology. Does that count? Yes, well, look, there are lots of things going on with dodgy money dealings that I'm working on, bringing some news to you on that sort of stuff very soon. But yeah, the mayor took a £50,000 check for his chosen charity, which is Queen Victoria Hospital from Scientology, who also, by the way, happened to be the mayor's employer. The mayor, as well as working as a councillor, he also holds a job as a photographer for Queen Victoria Hospital, which just so happens to be his chosen charity, which accepted the £50,000 check from Scientology. And as regards to being paid more than minimum wage, 100%. You can see a lot of the wages of councillors and of workers at East Grinstead Town Council, and you can see the clerk particularly is on a rather large salary, considering all of the work that she is doing to suppress people like myself, raising questions and trying to hold people accountable and helping the local community. It's outrageous. US does 5-year religious visas. Yes, this is another thing to consider. If they are indeed committing visa fraud in the UK, it wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened or we've become aware of it. In the US, there was a story a little while ago, and I remember it happening because I was working at Scientology at the time, where they were uncovered. It was in a huge news piece in the US that Scientology were issuing religious worker visas for the United States for people to come and train at Flag rather than work as a religious worker, and they got in trouble for that. So it wouldn't be the first time that they've been in the spotlight and accused of fraudulent visa sponsorship activities. So it's something that I'm sure the authorities will want to keep a very close eye on to make sure they're not doing anything dodgy here. But it looks like they're either committing visa fraud or workers' right, what's the word? They're not paying the wages they're meant to, labor rights, that sort of thing, violations, one or the other. It cannot be both. Sorry, it can be both, but it cannot be anything else. Like if you look at the numbers, you look at the accounts that they filed, and you look at the rules, there isn't another option that I can see. I might be wrong, but let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. And what else or other explanations there could be for their numbers just not adding up. Okie dokie, guys. Do you guys have any comments while I'm here, by the way, on my earlier video? I was fuming about the recent letter I got from East Grinstead Town Council. I still flabbergasted is my word of the day. I cannot believe a local authority called me a bully. Like, this is actually, I'm shocked, and I will be taking it further, as I'm sure you're aware. And as I looked over that complaint, by the way, I was reading over and I realized they've disconnected from me. The end of the letter says we are going to refuse to speak to you any further or respond to any more on this topic. So they've said, we're not going to talk to you anymore. We're not going to answer any questions about Scientology, and your complaint that you've already filed and was in the process of arranging a hearing. My understanding from the letter is they are no longer going to do that. They're going to reject the complaint as vexatious, and they're not going to respond to me whatsoever, which I think is quite frankly shameful when a government authority attacks a citizen and claims that he's bullying council members and disrupting council meetings. I've attended one council meeting in which I asked one question, which was answered, and I thanked the mayor, and we had a short email exchange afterwards. I don't know how the council can consider that me disrupting a council meeting. I've no idea, but it's still shocking, and there will be follow-up activity, of course. Comment: I was angry they called you a bully. Christian B. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was like, what? If anyone is bullying anybody here, it's East Grinstead Town Council. Doodoo09, what's EG's mayor called? Fraser Visser. However, he is not going to be mayor for very long. I believe it's April or May. I think it's May that the new mayor making event is happening. So he will be at the end of his 1-year mayorship, if that's the right word, and there'll be a new mayor stepping in. But I understand Fraser Visser will continue to be a councillor, even though he won't be a mayor. Mark the Dorset SP. Question: I don't think that can refuse an FOI based on being a bully. It looks like an Information Commissioner complaint now. Yes. At the end of the letter, they did say, if you're unhappy with this, you can complain to the ICO. I spent about 40 minutes or an hour or so on the phone to the ICO earlier, who gave me some fantastic advice. And absolutely, that is the next step, to take it to them, and they review the situation and make a ruling. And if you're not happy with that, you can take it to a tribunal. So that is 100% the next step. I'm also concerned at the fact that the council hung up the phone when I was asking for, what services are you offering? Where can you signpost me for, supporting me in light of, your accusations that I'm a bully? And also, when would be a time that's convenient for me to call back to speak to the person who wrote the letter? But I was hung up on, and that's concerning, because they hung up on someone who is requesting help from the council, which I think is a massive safeguarding issue, to be honest. Love it. Alex, you're the sweetest bully I've ever met. Oh, I'm going to have fun with the bully thing. I'm thinking of doing some merch. While we're on merch, actually, I've had a bit of fun. There's loads of new merch on my store, apostatealex.com. If you head to that site, I'm going to share my screen here. I will be adding some new bully stuff. I'm going to make a flabbergasted shirt as well. But look, there's a Chase Wave t-shirt. There's What in the Captain Mickey Wits. There's mugs and notepads and all sorts. This is a Not My Dick Sweat Man, who's one of the councillors at Mid Sussex District Council, which is the next level up from the town council, who is a big supporter of Scientology. There's loads of fun stuff in there. SPTV merch. There's hoodies and jumpers and all sorts. And I'm expanding it pretty much every week or so. So go check it out if you want to kit yourself out some merch and support the channel. That'd be amazing. I would really appreciate that. And if there's anything that you see or that you don't see on there that you want to see, let me know, and I can make it up and make it happen. Danielle asked the other day if they had V-neck shirts. And unfortunately, Fourth Wall doesn't give me the option to make and sell V-neck t-shirts. They only do crew neck or polos. So unfortunately, I can't do that. I'm limited to what Fourth Wall supply. But obviously, I'll keep an eye on it. And if they do start doing V-necks, I will, of course, put some up. Vanessa, hey V, how's it going? Hey Alex, hey everyone, stopping by to say hello. Hope you're having an awesome Friday. Great merch. Thanks V, I appreciate that. Good to see you back in action. And boy, a lot has been happening today. It was an eventful one to remember for sure. Learning about life. Question: no questions, just you're doing such a good job being the tamest bully I've ever seen. Thank you. And that's the thing. In all of my conversations I've had with the council, I've been requesting a meeting. I've said, look, I want to work with you rather than against you. I feel like we're very combative, and I think we would be better to collaborate and work together to find a solution to help these victims in your area, and figure out a way that you can reassure the public and your local residents who are very concerned about this issue. I want to work with you. Let me come in, give you a briefing on why this is an important issue, what my concerns are, and we can work out a solution together. But I get no responses, and in fact, I just get branded a bully by East Grinstead Town Council, which is just outrageous. One thing I had something in my head that I was going to say, but I just forgotten what it was. Uncle Bubba, would you consider running for town council? Now, that would be quite hilarious. I was thinking about this earlier, talking to someone about it. A lot of local residents. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to show you. A lot of local residents have asked me to run for council in East Grinstead, and as much as that would be funny because it would be like a middle finger up to the council and Scientology, it would be quite a lot of work. And I don't know if I'd have much impact because most of the council are in Scientology's pocket and would be not very nice to me considering they think I'm a bully. But how funny if a bully was to get elected onto the council. I wonder how they would react to that. Who knows? Um, who knows? We'll see. I don't really consider myself a politician, but if it requires someone stepping up and doing such a thing in order to hold people to account and expose the crimes and abuse that are happening at St. Hill and enabled by the council, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. But right now, I don't think it's quite necessary. But thank you for the chat. What I was going to show you is some of the tweets that I've been getting from local residents in response to this issue of being labeled a bully by the council. There's one person here who said in a tweet, I'm not going to show it because I don't know if they want their name read out publicly on YouTube. I know it's public on Twitter, but just in case. This person said, who's a local resident, I cannot believe that a local public funded authority is accusing anyone of being a bully. Absolutely shocking and shameful. If you can't ask public figures questions about their behaviors and make legal FOI requests, then they've definitely got something to hide. Keep digging. Excellent point, and I 100% agree. There's another one here from a local resident. I'm very disappointed in the attitude of my town council here. They seem to be taking your totally reasonable requests for very personally, which strongly suggests you've hit a nerve. They'll have Scientology whispering in their ear too, and are feeling hemmed in and panicky. There's definitely a sense of panic that I'm sensing from the council right now. At the end of the day, all I'm asking them is why they're enabling and supporting this group that has so much controversy around it, and that there are victims coming forward and people in the in the town saying they are concerned about East Grinstead and the infiltration that Scientology is having on the town and the influence they're asserting over the council. Very valid concerns, very valid questions that I'm raising, and other people have raised at the council meetings too. Why have they come back all guns blazing, disconnecting from me, saying I'm a bully, shutting it down, asking me not to speak about this on social media and refrain from commenting publicly on it? It's all very strange. If, for example, there was I can't say this word on YouTube, but an extremist group who wants to do harm to people, if you get what I'm saying, if there was one of those sort of like cells in East Grinstead that was going around trying to influence the local town council, people would be very concerned. And I'm sure the council would deal with it in a very different way. I know Scientology has their buildings considered as religious places of worship, but they don't have charity status. And I'm not asking the council to rule or make any decisions on a religious belief or supporting a church or not supporting. They have to represent and support every resident equally. But what I am asking is for them to reconsider their what looks like a partnership they have with volunteers who are actually modern slaves who cannot leave the property and are forced to go and work for the council at these events at St. Hill and in the town. I'm just asking them to reconsider it and listen to the people who have come forward to share their stories of how they were harmed, abused, forced to do hard manual labor, thrown in the lake during the winter times at St. Hill. These people just want their voices heard. And when you redact the public record, when the whole reason these people spoke during the public questions time at public meetings is that it's a public record, it cannot be redacted. When you then redact it, you are only doing Scientology a favor. And now with them issuing me a letter saying I'm a bully and disconnecting from me, it sure does smell a lot like OSA. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Oh, here's a good one, actually, before I wrap up. Fran, is there anything weird going in the schools? Are they teaching them some weird Scientology shit? Great question. And there is more coming on that very soon. Kind of. There is a Scientology school called Greenfields, which is operated by Scientology. They use L. Ron Hubbard technology, like study tech, to teach their students. But in terms of the general comprehensive normal schools that are in and around the area, no, they don't teach Scientology as part of the curriculum. But that doesn't mean Scientology won't try or haven't tried to get on the curriculum. And that's something I'll be reporting on to you guys very, very soon. Mazo, Apostate Alex, have you had any luck escalating this beyond the council? Not sure which exact thing you're talking about. However, if it's about the bully claim thing, no, not yet. I only received the letter today. I called the council, they hung up on me, and so I'm reporting it to you guys now, and I will be following it up on Monday. In terms of the other things regarding the mayor and his, what I believe to be a breach of the code of conduct, yes, I took that to Mid Sussex District Council. Concerns were raised, and there is a council meeting very soon of Mid Sussex District Council, which is the next one up from East Grinstead. Council meeting very soon, which I shall be attending with a public questions time, and I will certainly be raising the question and raising my concerns. So if you're around and you want to come, if you're in the UK, come along. You have to register beforehand. If you want to ask a question, you have to give it in time, a couple of days beforehand, so they can populate a response. But if you want to come along, it'll be a party. We're gonna have a bit of fun, and we're going to try and hold some people to account. There's also a talk that I'm giving on the 28th of March. I think I've got the date right there. If you are in or around Brighton, come down and we'll have a bit of fun. I'm going to be speaking at a Critical Thinkers Club thing that invited me to go and talk about my experience in Scientology in the UK. So come along for that. If you want to. I am waiting to hear back from them on whether it's going to be recorded so that I can put it up on my channel for those of you abroad to watch. Fingers crossed they say yes, but who knows. Guys, thank you so much. As always, if you want to support the channel, the best way of doing it is please buy me a coffee. If you want to support financially, if you want to support non-financially, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Why not do both? Because that stuff gets this video out to more people. It helps more people. It helps raise awareness of what's going on behind closed doors at St. Hill and why this is so important, and how the council is totally guilty of what I'm deeming cult corruption, which is corruption instigated by a cult. Guys, thank you so much. And as always, I have one message and one message only. And this is definitely, I'm considering a declaration of war from East Grinstead Town Council, because nobody writes a statement and calls me a bully without there being serious considerations on how I'm going to respond to that. So they've declared war, and I've been saying for months, I'm on war footing and I'm not fucking about.
Hip, hip, cheerio! Scientology's got to go! Hip, hip, cheerio! Scientology's got to go! The abuse has to stop! The abuse has to stop!
There is human trafficking occurring at St. Hill at this very moment, and it will continue until government agencies step in to stop it.
I'm angry, real angry.